Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and it's time for Ask a Herbert Erpaderp. The final Ask a Herbert Erpaderp of the year, in fact. It is now the start of December, which means in about half an hour, it's going to be Christmas time. I hope you've got your shopping done, if that's the sort of thing you do. And even if you don't celebrate Christmas or any other end of year things, I hope the rest of the year is awesome for you, and next year is glorious. Okay, onwards to the answering of questions. Hetzer's Gonna Hetz said, ever thought about scratch building a Bob Semple tank in no particular scale? I haven't really thought about doing that. I'm not a big scratch builder, not unless I really desperately want something as soon as possible. I'm sure if I even tried it, there would be a ton of people just pissing and moaning about how inaccurate it was or something like that anyway. If I'm going to be doing scratch building or even kit bashing, I'd prefer to come up with something of my own design. I think that'd be more fun. Hetzer's Gonna Hetz said, considering the problems with Zvezda you mentioned on the last Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, what brand of 15mm kits will we have to buy instead? Peter Pig? Aside from Flames of War and Zvezda, the only plastic 15mm kits in production are giant anime robots by Bandai and Kotobukiya at the moment. There is also the Plastic Soldier Company, and their kits are pretty good. I guess they don't really churn out a ton of models all the time, but they do have a good selection, and their kits are pretty fun to build. Otherwise, I do agree, I don't think there's much choice in 15mm scale plastic kits, particularly for World War II models. It does seem like there are more and more 3D printed options for 15mm scale though, either that you buy already printed, or you print yourself. So I guess that's also an option, especially if you're more interested in painting and gaming than actually building a kit. And I would imagine a lot of people who are into wargaming would probably fit into that category. So maybe there isn't really a huge market for 15mm scale kits, though I would like to see more of them. Another question from Hetzer's Gonna Hetz. Thoughts on the Vought V173 Flying Pancake and XF5U Flying Flapjack? They are definitely weird looking aircraft. Other than that, I don't really know anything about them or how they fly, and I'm assuming they did fly based on that first picture. It's always interesting to see weird and unconventional things working, though I guess it wasn't an especially effective design, otherwise we'd probably see more of them flying around today. Still, it's interesting, and I wouldn't say no to building a model of one. I do like weird stuff. Argonaut248 said, if you could produce a model vehicle, what would you make a kit of? I think the main one I would want to do is an AC-1 Sentinel, in plastic. The main reason for that is it just doesn't seem to exist. At least not in plastic, or in a way that's easily obtainable. I'd rather see new stuff of less common subjects than the 7 millionth Sherman or Spitfire, though obviously those subjects are popular, so it makes financial sense to do those when deciding what kits to make. I do get that, but unique and interesting stuff is what I would want to do. I'd also consider doing some nice plastic kits of farming and construction machinery. That seems like an area that's a bit lacking too, unfortunately. Trekan Beluvic said, what do you like the most about your hometown? I assume you mean the place I was born, and not the place I reside now. There isn't really much about where I live now that stands out. It's not bad, and it's got the things I need, it's just not really interesting. I think the thing I like about where I was born, and spent the first few years of my life, is that it's by the sea. Obviously the sea isn't really specific to that area, I mean the sea is pretty big, but I do like the sea, so that's something I like about that area. It also doesn't really have much else going for it. That random Zaku said, if I were to buy an airbrush, what would you recommend for a beginner? It really depends on your budget. I would suggest getting the best quality airbrush you can, and that is obviously going to cost more. Get one from a reputable manufacturer that you can find information about and who will stand by their product. My first airbrush was from Runway 13, which I believe is an Australian company. It worked well and lasted for a really long time, and when it did break, after years, they replaced it. There's going to be a whole lot of people with different opinions on airbrushes from Iwata or Badger or whatever, on particular models and so forth, and I just don't care much about that kind of debate, and it's really up to you to determine what specific model you think is appropriate. I don't personally have enough experience with a wide range of different airbrushes to give any real advice, and I suspect a lot of people partaking in those exhausting online debates don't either. The reason I say to get the best quality airbrush you can from a reputable manufacturer is probably obvious, but like with a lot of tools, you get what you pay for. You'll have less issues with a good airbrush, and it'll be less frustrating and discouraging. Buying a $10 airbrush on Amazon or whatever does seem like a good idea, and you might get lucky, but you probably won't. If that is the best you can afford, it's fine, but I would say try to save a bit more money. Having extra problems due to faulty equipment while you're trying to learn is probably not really helpful. I mean, it might help you learn to deal with the issues, but it is going to be more frustrating and you'll probably not like it. Even a slightly more expensive no-name airbrush will likely be better than the very cheapest ones. I do use those slightly more expensive ones you can get from Amazon or whatever, but I consider them a beta airbrush. I don't use my SMS or Iwata airbrushes for priming, or paint that I think will easily clog them. I use the one that I think costs like $60 Australian for that kind of thing. And that would work fairly well for a main airbrush too, you'd just have to look after it. I think the thing to do is to check out reviews for whatever airbrush you are considering, though do take those with a grain of salt. And I would add that if you can't find reviews or information about it, it's probably not great. I'm not sure how helpful all of that waffling is, but I do hope it is helpful. Herchion said, there are a fair few 15mm AFV STLs and people printing as a service. Would you get some for wargaming, or are you all about the model kits? I do prefer building kits, because I find the building part fun. If I was looking for something specific, just to paint or for a game, and I didn't already have a model for it, I would think about ordering something printed. But I don't really do much wargaming, and I'm really not likely to be in a situation where I really need something for a game that's coming up or something like that, so I just stick to kits. I can definitely see how those services would be useful, especially for those of us who just don't like building kits. Trekan Beluvic said, will you add some, let's call it stowage. So, will you add some stowage to your field toilet before you paint it? I already painted the field toilet. It was a few months ago, in like June, I think. And I did consider adding stowage, but I didn't because I figured it would be impossible to see down inside the toilet, and I was too lazy to figure out how to make a convincing looking, deposit on the seat or floor. I have thought about putting it on a small, maybe drink coaster sized diorama, and I would add extra stuff to it then. So I guess the answer is, while it's already painted, maybe I will. Trekan Beluvic said, will Keefe return? Keefe is always there, always lurking, full of VB. I'm sure Keefe will return at some point. The reality is Barnaby and I haven't really felt like playing Farm Sim, and I think it might be a bit too much effort for him to install more mods to be able to join my game. But we probably will play it again at some point, and then Keefe will return. Or he might appear in some other game. Who can say? That random Zaku said, have you ever considered building a Gunpla? I have given it a passing thought, but I'm not really interested in Gundam or anime, so I don't have much interest in building the models. I don't really see the point in building something, or more importantly paying for, a model of something that I'm just not really into. Monol said, if a question is asked, but the answer is questioned, is the answer actually an answer or just a prelude to another question? Why not both? Answers should be questioned, or most of the time anyway. It should be questions all the way down. I wish I had a funny answer for this. It seems like the sort of question that should have a funny answer, but I got nothing. In the YouTube comment section of last month's Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, Martin Gotham said, could paint your Airfix Spitfire in a very weird paint scheme. I could, but I haven't really felt like painting a plane. Also, I've no idea where I've stored the Airfix Spitfire. It feels like I built that 50 years ago. Trekan Beluvic said, I like the tyre swing on Peterenko's small tractor diorama very much. Such little ideas make it, which is in response to the pictures of Peterenko's model in last month's Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, and not really a question. But I do agree, I also really liked the tyre swing. It is a small detail, but those are important and can add a lot to models, especially dioramas. It's one of the things that really appeals to me about model railways, just being able to put in whatever small details that exist in the real world but you don't really think about. It's those little things that maybe don't really stand out, but they kind of trick your brain into thinking that the scene is more believable, if that makes sense. Or maybe they're just something funny that takes a little while to see. I always enjoy that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm waffling, and that was all of the questions this month. Let's check out some of the models that have been shared on Discord over the last month. The man they call Asher shared this Stug 3, and I'm very entertained by the face. Is it something the Germans actually painted on their Stugs? Probably not. Is it awesome? Yes. Yes it is. Trekan Beluvic shared this Katyusha on a Gaz AAA truck. Or am I meant to read all of those out as individual letters? On a GAZ AAA truck. The model is a 15mm scale plastic kit from Battlefront, and obviously the paint job is rather good, but I think my favourite part about this is the driver. Is it the driver or a passenger? I don't know which side this truck is meant to be driven from. Anyway, I'm very entertained by the driver leaning out and waving "Hello!" That's a fantastic touch. Amateur Hobbyist shared some Germans. These are Waffen SS for the 2nd Panzer Division in Normandy 1944. I didn't see any other information, but I'm assuming these are Warlord 28mm scale figures for bolt action. The manufacturer isn't really important though. What matters is they're nicely painted, and this means if they were to come up against any unpainted force, they would easily win. Nice work. Here are some skeleton warriors that Ratto's done. These look really cool, and I think the shields are not only a really nice colour, but a great way to give that unit some colour, both for interest and to tell them apart from other skeleton units, being that skeletons are kind of naked. Also, the basing is really good. Argonaut 248 shared this Italian heavy cruiser, Polar. This is a 350th scale kit from Hobby Boss. I think the red and white stripes at the front here look pretty interesting. Makes me think of candy canes. Also, the flags are nice. That looks like it would be kind of fiddly to do. Also, they spell out a very sensible message. Nice work. And that's it for the models this month. Thanks to everyone who shares their modelling work. It's always good to see. Obviously there's a lot more shared on Discord than I show here, so go to Discord and check it out. Of course, I want to say thanks to everyone who asks questions too. This would be kind of pointless with no questions. And last but not least, a very big thank you to my patrons. Your support is truly appreciated. Hell yeah. There's obviously going to be a couple more videos this year because it's only the beginning of December, but Ask a Herbert Erpaderp won't return until next year, so I'll see you then. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.